My name's Brady Stack. I'm a private pilot student up here in New England, and super excited to be doing this today. Thank you very much for giving me some time.
Yeah, of course. So, if you guys are interested, I do offer these mock check rides. For those of you who don't know, what you call it? I taught at UND. I teach in the Airbus A320 for the ATP CTP course. I've signed off. I don't even know. I don't even remember how many students I've signed off for certificate granting checks at this point. But I did also do private pilot stage checks for the University of North Dakota. So that's what this POI or POA, plan of action, plan of intent, is actually from. So this would be the same kind of check ride or mock check ride or stage check or what have you. You'd go through if you do happen to end up at UND. So the first thing I really like to bring up when it comes to check rides is, oh crap, that's not what I wanted to do. Is it's your check ride. It's your check ride to pass and or fail. A lot of students think that once they get into the check ride, they have to take the check ride to its finality, whether it be a pass or a fail. You can pause, stop, incomplete, defer a check ride to a later date, even if the check ride has already started, right? Both of y'all have to consent to continuing the check ride. So I like to bring that up right at the beginning of even mock check rides, so I can give you the same kind of feel that you would get on an actual check ride, okay? So before we go any further, I'd dig through your logbooks, make sure your instructor gave you the appropriate endorsements. I've screwed that up before, so always make sure you've got your instructor's number like ready,
Yep.
and be ready to call them in the event that they missed one. Because again, I've missed endorsements. Other instructors have missed endorsements, and I've had to run to the airport with a handwritten endorsement just to make sure that it's ready to go. All right.
Sure.
Obviously, have all the stuff in which you're ready for a flight. I've had students show up for stage checks and not bring their glasses, even though their medical says they need glasses.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. All right. So we've got 3 outcomes from today. Again, being simulated, we've got satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and incomplete. Satisfactory means that you're going to be consistently within the standards. It does not mean that everything needs to be perfect every single time. It means that you need to be consistently within the standards. And if you're not within the standards, you bring it back within the standards in a timely manner, right? So steep turns, for
Yep.
example, if you go to 50 degrees of bank and you bring it right back to 45, that's not an immediate failure. Okay. Or,
Right.
if you get up to 105 for a hot second and then bring it back into your maneuvering speed, again, not a failure. But if you
Right.
just keep hanging out at 105 when you're supposed to be at 95, obviously that would be unsatisfactory. Okay. Now, as we talked about, unsatisfactory, then we got incomplete. All right. The incomplete would either be lack of time on the part of the student or me, or either the student is unable to continue because of illness or injury. Okay, so if you start running out of time, you start feeling sick. Some students just get jitters and nerves and they start getting nauseous, right?
Sure.
So just keep that in
Yeah.
mind. All right, so normally we would have an oral portion, which is what we're gonna cover today. We're not gonna hop into the sim. Microsoft Flight Sim ain't gonna really be that much of a benefit. If you've got any questions on the maneuvers, I'm more than happy to go over them with you. But we're just mostly just gonna be the oral portion. All right. Do you have any questions so far?
No questions at all.
All right. So let's get right into it. Let's get into V speeds. So let's just ask right off the bat, what is VY?
So VY is the angle at which we would want to climb out to gain the most altitude in the shortest amount of time.
The shortest amount of time, right? So if I had obstacles at the end of my runway, would I want to use VY?
No, we would want to use VX because that'll give us the greatest angle of climb.
Yes. VX would give us the greatest angle of climb. Awesome. Let's talk about what's another one? VNO. What would VNO be, and what would it be displayed as on the airspeed indicator?
So VNO would be the well, it's I'm thinking VNE here. Never exceed. VNO would be the I think you think. Oh, shoot.
So
Mind if I
think of
look it
it.
up in my aim?
So let's think about it. All V speeds are generally an acronym, right? So
Right.
VNE stands for V never exceed. What do you think?
Right.
So anytime below this speed is normal, right?
The normal operating speed. Yeah.
All right. So if I was
Sure.
above VNO, when would it be safe for me to exceed VNO?
In very very calm wind situations.
So it's smooth air, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
smooth air, right? So we want to make sure we're not exceeding VNO. We're in small general aviation aircrafts. We're not exceeding VNO, right?
Never. Probably
Um,
not.
no. All right. Let's talk about VFE. All right. What's VFE?
V would be V flaps extended.
Okay. Now, let's say I'm at. How is that displayed on the airspeed indicator?
It would be the white arc on the
Okay.
airspeed indicator.
What's the bottom of the white arc?
That would be our stalling speed
Stalling speed in what configuration?
in a landing configuration.
So if you were to assign that to a V speed, what would that V speed be?
Of course, there's a term for it. That would
So we've got our normal stall speed.
uh,
What's V speed is that?
in the in the Archer it flux like you asking for a number here.
No, I'm just asking for what the how would it be labeled? So it'd be VS,
That would
right?
be
So
the
VS,
right.
right? So at the bottom, so VSO would be landing configuration, right? And I know the Archer
Right. Yeah.
POH, at least the Archer POH as I read through, they struggle with that. They don't just give you like a chart, right?
No.
Cessna does, but it's not bad, not bad. V speeds, I'd really just make sure build your own chart. I know Archer doesn't give you one, so build your own. That's the easiest way to
Yep.
make sure you've
Okay.
got them all down and you have the actual label associated with them, right?
Sure.
And of course, know the numbers. I don't have your POH. The numbers I've got might be a little bit different because I'm looking at like a Piper. What I've got written down was let me see. I got written
Can
down
I
a
give you
Piper
the
Cherokee.
Warrior? Because
I got a Cherokee 2. What engine is yours equipped with?
so I fly with the IO 360.
Okay, so IO 360. So what does the I stand for in that IO?
I've never been asked that before. I would have no idea.
It's injected. It's a fuel injected engine, right?
So
So
it's
if
definitely it's not an IO. It's just an O.
okay, so
It's
it's
not
just
fuel injected.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's just an O. So it's carbureted, right?
Yep. It is carbureted.
All right. Well, let's dig into a little bit of systems now, and we're going to start with some emergencies. So, if your engine caught fire during start, what would you do?
So for the memory items on that, we had to keep cranking the engine, right? We need to get all that, keep cranking, burning all that fuel out. But simultaneously, I'm heading down to my fuel selector, turning off the fuel selector, pulling out the mixture, cutting off all fuel from the engine. But again, keeping on cranking that. Then eventually, once we've decided that we've done all that we can do, we're jumping out.
Okay. Yep. So you're saying if the fire doesn't go out, hopping out of the airplane,
We're
obviously.
getting out. Yep.
Yep. Now, what would be the most likely cause of an engine fire in a carbureted airplane? Because yours has a primer, right?
Yep. We have a primer.
Okay.
Um, on start, it could be could have an issue with the electrical system, or not the electrical system, but it could be something kind of with the magnetos.
So
Not
when it comes to pipers, the most likely cause of an engine fire on start is actually people priming them improperly or priming them too much. A lot of people they'll try to use the throttles to prime them as opposed to the primer because the primer's
okay.
sticky, right? You've used the primer before. It kind of sucks to use, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people, especially when it comes to like Seminoles and stuff, they'll pump the throttles, but pumping the throttles does what to a carburetor?
Adds a lot of fuel to the carburetor.
Yep, yep. And the primer isn't actually injecting fuel at the carburetor, right? So we're out cruising around, and we enter a spin somehow. Like we just screw this up royally. We enter a spin. How are you going to recover from that?
Immediately power off, aileron neutral, opposite rudder, and we're gonna push the elevator down originally to break the stall because the spin is a stall, and then we're gonna immediately pitch back up for VY.
All right. Now, when's the most likely time that you're going to enter a spin?
Um, on the base to final turn, normally with a crosswind.
So you are. That's almost a textbook answer. Do you understand why?
Because as we're entering that base to final turn, we already have a really low wing, and if we overbank it and we get that wind hitting us from the side, and we enter a stall, that wing is already low, so there's a recipe for the spin.
Yeah, I'd say it's more of a, at least from what I've seen, it's more of a user error as opposed to, or at least in a high wing aircraft like the Cessnas. A lot of students, when they realize that they've got that crosswind blowing them away from their center line, they'll start kicking the rudder. And what happens when I kick the rudder? The airplane wants to bank over, right?
Right,
So what do I do to counteract that? I bank the other way.
right. And
What?
you just cross control, and there you are. Yep.
Yep. And so just make sure that if you are doing the, you're in that high crosswind situation, if you get blown past center line, go around, right? You can always go
Yep.
around. Now, let V speeds, emergencies, they're pretty good, to be honest. Let's get into some pre flight actions. Let's talk about weight and balance. I'm not going to ask you to do any weight and balance because, again, I don't have your POH, I don't have your school's equipment list and all that jazz. But let's talk about, within and inside and outside limits of CG. So if I've got a CG that's just too far forward, right? You're buddies with like a linebacker or something, and he wants to go fly with you, and you're like, we should be good. But you end up too far forward on the CG. What are some of the concerns we would have?
So some current concerns that I'll have is it's going to be a lot harder to get that nose up in a situation where we're going to need to have, you know, the nose. It's going to be hard to climb, right? Climb
Well,
performance is going to.
yeah, climb performance. Let's talk about landing.
Yep.
You got any
Well,
concerns on landing?
yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to get that nose wheel up to land, and nose wheel landings are no good.
No, 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 no. They are absolutely terrible, right? So if I've got a CG that's too far aft, what are some of my concerns?
So some concerns that I'm going to have here is recovering from a stall, because when the airplane stalls, it kind of naturally wants to pitch down for you, and it's going to have a hard time doing that with a too far aft CG.
Yep, it's gonna, and it's really a matter of arm, right? Because your tail works on about the CG, right? All of our control surfaces work about the CG. So the
Right.
farther my CG is away from that tail, the greater of a lever that it kind of works, right? So if
Yep.
I've got a real aft CG, I don't have as big of a lever, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Performance calculations, again, they're pretty straightforward. Pipers kind of suck. Their spaghetti charts are pretty rough.
Yes, they are.
I, I can't say much about that. Let's talk about sterile flight deck or sterile cockpit. What does that mean to you?
So that means no talking. So in my pre-flight briefing, I use the safety acronym: seatbelts, air vents, fire extinguisher, emergency exits, and then once I get to the talking, I make sure that I mean, obviously, I haven't flown with anybody who isn't a CFI or a pilot. So, but explaining sterile cockpit, verring, taxiing, takeoff, landing, critical stages of flight where I really need to be focused, will be really important.
Awesome, awesome. Now, if you know what, that's actually pretty straightforward, right? Um, Good on all of that. Now, let's get into how do we know that an aircraft is airworthy, right? So we've got a couple documents. What documents do I need in an airplane?
Sure. So I need my airworthiness certificate, my registration, radio operating license if it's going to be going internationally, my operating limitations, and a weight and balance.
Okay. So let's say I get into an airplane. You know how like y'all also have the J bar. You also have the big old e-brake bar for your flaps, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
So there should be some indications down there showing you what flap indication you're at, right? Or no? I guess
not.
better one. You obviously we can't smoke in airplanes anymore, even if they've got ashtrays, and there's placards for that. Now let's say that no smoking placard is all faded and you can't even read it anymore. Is your aircraft legal?
No, because we have to have, because technically it's inoperative, right? We can't use it, so it has to be, and we can't remove it because it's in the part of the door frame. So we got to put a placard on it that says no.
Yep. So the aircraft wouldn't be airworthy. I know it seems ridiculous that the aircraft wouldn't be airworthy for a no smoking sign.
Right.
But at that point, the aircraft wouldn't be airworthy. What would I need to do to ensure that nobody is confused about the airworthiness of that aircraft?
Well, we always have the airworthiness certificate is visible to everybody, and the placards are also visible to everybody. And if they're getting worn, as you said, we're gonna replace them.
All right, but let's say I got to order a new no smoking sign for this aircraft.
Yep.
Airplane's not airworthy. What do I have to do to ensure that there's no confusion about the airworthiness of that aircraft?
We have to we can squawk about it in the logbook, I guess.
So we would definitely write something down in the maintenance logbook. Does the maintenance logbook have to stay in the aircraft?
Yes, it does.
Your school, is it legally required to be in the aircraft for it to be airworthy, though?
No, it is not.
Okay, so how would somebody know that the aircraft is not airworthy other than noticing the placard? Remove the airworthiness certificate.
Oh, okay. So that's
Yes, remove the airworthiness certificate. If the aircraft's not airworthy, remove its certificate.
Yep, it doesn't have. Yeah.
All right. There's a couple other things you can do, like lockout, tag out, stuff like that. But if the aircraft is not airworthy, remove the certificate. Right. Does the airworthiness certificate ever expire?
It does not.
Okay. So what are some of the things that would make the airworthiness certificate invalid? We just covered one, right?
Right. Yeah. But if our ADs aren't met with, our airworthiness directives aren't met with, possibly if the airplane is out of inspection, stuff like that would.
Okay. What are some of the inspections that are required? Like, let's say you own an airplane. What inspections are required for you to own your airplane?
So if I owned an Archer, I would be required to bring it in for an annual inspection every 12 calendar months. An altimeter, pitot-static system, and transponder check every 24 calendar months, and an ELT check every 12 calendar months. If it's been used for more than an hour or half its useful battery life.
Okay, is there any other thing in which you'd have to look into that ELT? You got to the aircraft, the ELT light's on.
Then yeah, I mean,
unknown amount of time.
Right.
That's another one. Unknown amount of time.
All right. That's good to know.
Yep. Because here's the thing, like, you get to the airplane and ELT's on, you're like, well, shit, is it half its battery life?
Right. Yeah, we don't know.
You don't know, right? We already talked about you talked about the radio license. You brought it up all on your own, right? So every airplane's got a POH. You probably have a digital POH, right? Or you've got that one right there. Let's say you get to your airplane and the POH is missing. Does that POH that you've got right there on your desk fill the requirement of the POH?
No, it does not.
Okay, why?
Because so in the POH is the weight and balance data, and
okay,
that weight and balance data wouldn't be active, but also the serial numbers on it as well.
So POHs are serialized. They are specific for each aircraft, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there any other kind of manuals you might need? Like what do you have? What equipment do you have? Is it an IFR rated panel?
It is an IFR rated panel.
All right, so that means you've got all kinds of fancy radios and stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. Are the instructions for those radios in the POH?
No, they are not.
So what else do you need?
I would have to have everything for I believe the G5s. So I fly the airplane I fly got dual G5s, so that's in the envelope next to that, as well as all the extra radio stuff and the 430s and stuff like that. Yeah.
So all the supplements associated with it.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Awesome. 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 A lot of people don't really think about that. You know, they're just at a flight school and they're like, oh, well, you know, the flight school takes care of the airplane. They got all the books in it. And then when they go to buy an airplane, they're like, wait a minute. Does this have all the right fucking paperwork?
Oh, yeah. No, trust me.
All right. Believe me, I you know, when I bought mine, when I bought my airplane, there was a lot of like, oh shit, like I have to remember this stuff because I've been flying for the airlines for so long, and you know, the maintenance department deals with this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now, let's say you get to the airplane and it's missing a static wick. Is it airworthy?
I mean, I would have to. It's not in the A tomato flames.
What's eight tomato flames?
Airspeed. Like, do you want me to rattle them all off?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? I don't know what eight tomato flames are. Is it spicy tomato?
One would hope, right? But no, it's the minimum equipment that we need to have on board the airplane. So it's the airspeed indicator, tachometer, oil pressure gauge. 91205 is where you can find it. I can rattle them all off.
Awesome. That's what I was trying to get at. Don't use mnemonics on check rides.
Okay.
All right. Because the DPE, you know, some DPEs aren't that nice. They're gonna go, the fuck's a tomato flame?
Yeah. Right.
All right. And that's the thing. It's like know the reg, right?
Yep.
If you know the reg and you can say the, you know, but keep the mnemonics in your noggin. All right.
Yep.
So you said 91205. Is there anything else that I could check? Any other regulation that might apply to the airworthiness of an aircraft?
I can look it up. I have the big fancy book next to me.
All right. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, look it up.
I want to say yes, because I know 91205 is only part of it. Yeah, 91, 213, 209, and 211 talks about aircraft lights, supplemental oxygen, inoperative instruments and equipment.
Awesome. So you definitely check 91213, 91205. And to Teddy, why do all CFIs talk the same when they are quizzing you? I don't know. It's probably because we're trained the way to try and keep an upbeat demeanor to ensure that the student doesn't feel like they're being berated. Because it would really suck to be in one of the most stressful situations in your life, you know, going in for a check ride, and then the examiner's kind of a dick about it.
Yeah.
Right? Awesome. So let's get into the actual regs, right? A lot of students struggle with regs. So what are your privileges? Once you pass your private pilot certificate, you got that fancy green card. Well, technically it's going to be paper when you first get it. You got that fancy paper thing. What can you do? What does this allow you to do?
I can carry passengers now that aren't smelly CFIs, and then I can also go and I can do. There's actually a lot more that you can do with a private pilot certificate that I had no idea before I looked them up. I can tow gliders. I can do search and rescue.
Now, if you want to tow gliders, do you need anything else, or can you just go off and do it?
I got to be trained on that. Have three tows by a supervised tows in the preceding. I want to say 90 days. I could go and look it up, but I don't plan on doing it. And yes, I'll have to have 100 hours total time to do something like that.
Awesome. Now, Necromancer over on TikTok got an amazing point. Don't dig holes. Right?
Am I digging holes right now?
Yeah. So you're just like, oh, I can tow gliders. Like, oh, really?
Oh, yeah, really?
Let's talk about that. All right. And you see how you didn't have the full answer, right? The basic ones. I can carry passengers. I can't do things for compensation or hire, right?
Yep.
You know, a DPE might even say like, oh, well, isn't there a few things you can do for compensation or hire as a private pilot?
And then you can.
Well, and what would those things be?
Well, yeah, sure. So we can, if we do any type of charity work for a charitable organization, we can be reimbursed for for some of our flight expenses. So that's, I mean, technically, getting paid, I guess. You're not having to. If you fly with friends, you can't. I'm not. You got to pay your pro rata share. So
Okay. Now, let's say what you call it? You and another pilot go flying, but the other guy's got a lot more money than you, and he's like, "Nah, I got this." Is that legal?
is not legal. We
Okay.
got to split it 50-50.
All right. But if you take, a friend up and they're like, "Man, I only got $20 for gas," and you got to cover the rest. Is that legal?
Yeah, that's legal.
Awesome. Now, Sam, amazing little bit of tip, right? Don't try to fill any silence in the check ride. Don't try to fill the silence. Don't try to fill dead space. Answer the question. Like, do you know what time it is? Yes. That is the answer to that question.
My CFI, we were doing this. He's like, sit there, answer it, and then shut the fuck up.
Never miss an opportunity to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, all right.
All right. So to continue on, so we've got you got a pretty good understanding of your privileges and limitations. But let's say it's been 98 days since you've flown. What do you got to do before you take up? You got a friend that wants to go flying.
3 takeoffs and landings to 3 takeoffs and landings.
3 takeoffs and landings. All right. So it's been another 87 days since you've flown and since you got your 3 takeoffs and landings. Are you still good?
Yes.
Awesome. Right. What if you want to go fly at night? Like there's fireworks or something going off. Anything different about that?
Those landings got to be full stop.
Okay. What about, well, you're not flying tailwheel. Awesome. Let's continue on. Now, you're going on a cross country, right? You're going from point A to point B, and it's gonna take you 42 gallons of gas in your Archer 2. Is that legal, or do you got to make a stop?
In the Archer, we got no. It's not legal.
Okay, why?
We need 30 minutes of reserve fuel past the point of which we are traveling to.
Okay, so what's the total gas? What's the usable gas? And I said we were burning 42.
The usable gas in the Archer is 48 gallons.
Okay, and how many are we burning an hour?
About 10 hours.
Okay, so about 10. All right, awesome. Now, let's say you've got a buddy. You're flying along. You guys are having a good old time. You're getting a little bit of turbulence, and your buddy pukes in the little sickness bag. Do you got to fly around with that the entire time, or can you yeet that overboard?
I cannot just throw it overboard.
Okay.
As much as I'd like.
Why?
That isn't a regulation of things that can and cannot be tossed over.
I'm gonna have to dig that one up because I've got Reg 91-115. Or sorry, 91-15. So what does 91-1 or 91-15 say? It's the one that covers dropping objects from an aircraft, right?
Yeah, no pilot in command of a civil aircraft may allow any object to be dropped from an aircraft in flight that creates hazards to person or property. However, this section does not prohibit the dropping of any object if reasonable precautions are taken to avoid any injury or damage to persons or property. So I guess if we're over, the beach, kind of a little over the water, no one's gonna get hurt.
Over the desert, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if your buddy yaks while you're going along and you start crossing some mountains, you're over the desert or what have you, you guys got to hang out with that bag of vomit the entire time.
The issue is that in this area, you are. But I guess if you're in the middle of nowhere, sure, no, you don't have to.
Somebody's saying just yeet the whole buddy. All right. when you start going on some long cross countries, you end up kind of in a, you could end up in some, what you call it, some pretty remote place. I'm not exactly sure. You said you're in New England. I guess it's a pretty densely populated area up there. I did all my flight training in Arizona, where half of our flights were just over open desert half the time. So
Oh yeah, no, not the case up here.
no. All right. Um, awesome. So let's say you're cruising along, or you're planning a cross country, and there's a restricted area, right? That's kind of in the way of your cross country. Is there any? Can you fly through restricted areas?
No.
Is there anybody you could ask?
Uh, can you clarify? Like, what do you mean? Is there anything?
So restricted areas, no, you're not going to fly through without permission, right?
Right.
So where would you find that information? Like, who's in charge of a restricted area?
On the chart supplement would have stuff about that, but also I'm looking at it right now on the actual sectional on the bottom of it will have information about a restricted area as well.
Okay, awesome. So if they gave you permission to traverse that restricted area, would you be fine?
While using caution, sure.
Yeah. All right. What are some? So, are you allowed to go through an MOA?
Yeah.
Or what is an MOA? I guess would be the first question.
Military operating area.
All right. What would you be concerned about in an MOA?
I'd be concerned about aircraft under 10,000 doing speeds in excess of 250 knots.
Yeah. Now, what about a wilderness area? How is that depicted on a sectional?
So it's blue, whatever shape it is with like blue dots in it.
All right. An A-10 going Bert is what someone's saying you should be concerned about.
That would
Now,
be a concern.
Now, let's talk about a wilderness area, right? Are you allowed to fly low over a wilderness area? Like, is it illegal? Is it strictly prohibited for you to fly low over a wilderness area as long as you can maintain, the ability to make a safe place to land in the event of an engine failure?
No.
It's not blatantly illegal, but don't be a dick. Leave the birds alone.
Correct. Yes.
All right. What kind of equipment do I need to go into Delta Airspace?
Two-way radio communication.
Okay. Now, we're going along. You're the person on the radio. I'm ATC, and I say stand by. Are you cleared into Delta Airspace?
Yes. If they've said your call sign back, yes. But if they just say aircraft calling standby, no, we are not.
Awesome. Now let's talk about Bravo Airspace. As a student pilot, you're on a solo. Can you go into Bravo Airspace?
I don't have the endorsement to, so no.
Okay. Now, once you do get your private pilot certificate, is Bravo Airspace fair game?
As long as I have a Bravo clearance to go through it, sure.
All right. So, how would you define a Bravo clearance? Like, what words are you expecting to hear on the radio?
Archer 9093 Foxtrot radar contact cleared through the class Bravo at or above 2,500.
Awesome. So you get an actual deliberate clearance through that airspace.
Correct.
Awesome. Let's talk about an ADIS. You're up near Canada, so there's a border up there.
Yep.
Right? When can you cross it?
I don't have much experience with ADIS, but that would be, you got to be on an IFR flight plan, I believe.
Okay. Is there any way you could do that as a private pilot? I mean, you can't file IFR flight plans as a private pilot. There's people that cross borders as private pilots all the time.
A VFR is it just a flight? Yeah, probably just be on a flight plan.
There's a DVFR flight plan, so it's a slightly different VFR flight plan. What you're going to do is you're going to let them know your expected crossing time. If you're on flight following, it's pretty straightforward. All right.
Okay.
So if you're ever crossing a border, now let's say you do cross that border, where you got to go first?
An airport.
Airport of what? You can just go to your buddy's airport. Your buddy's owns a private airstrip. You good to just go over there and smuggle the maple syrup back to?
I wish, but no. we got to land at an airport and clear customs.
Okay, so an airport that has a port of entry, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Let's talk about weather services. I know you probably got an iPad, and you haven't looked at a TAF or a METAR in ages,
Oh no!
right?
Oh no! Oh no! My instructor is very, very strict on that.
Well, that's good. So let's talk about a TAF. How long are they valid for?
24 hours.
All right, anywhere where they might be valid for longer than that?
Uh, unless they could be listed as valid 36 hours. If they're listed for longer than 24, then they are.
Turn his mic up if I can. Awesome. All right, I'll turn your mic up. Okay. Um, how often are they updated?
We get 4 of them every day, every 6 hours.
Awesome. Now, how big of a mile do they cover, or how big of an area do they cover?
From the airport out 5 miles.
Awesome. Air Mets. What's Tango?
Turbulence.
Turbulence. All right. Sierra.
Mountain obscurations.
All right. Or.
IFR weather.
Awesome. What about Zulu?
Freezing.
Okay. Can you fly into let's say the weather is showing that it's going to be -20 and rain. I know it'd be impossible to be -20 and rain. Let's say it's like 34 degrees on the ground. At your cruise altitude, it's 28 degrees Fahrenheit or -2 degrees Celsius, and their rain is in the forecast. Are you cleared to go fly in your aircraft?
In my no, not in the Archer.
No. So what would you need?
We would need de-icing equipment on board.
So what would you call that? Certified for? Have you ever heard the term FIKI?
I've never heard that term. No.
No. Okay. So certified for flight into known icing, or FIKI, flight into known icing, right? I know this isn't specific about your aircraft, but you got any aircraft in mind that might be certified for flight into known icing?
An A320.
Awesome. A lot of Cirruses are. Like
Yep,
the SR-22 with the TKS system and the heated prop.
Yep.
I still wouldn't recommend it, right? But let's say you're cruising along, you screw up, you end up in icing conditions. What are you going to do?
Make a 180 and get out of it.
Awesome. Your aircraft's carbureted. What are some of the things you need to be concerned about at high moisture levels?
Carburetor icing.
Okay, what are some of the benefits of a carburetor opposed to fuel injection? I know, that's a weird question.
That is a weird question. I've actually, only thing I've heard is downsides about it. But
Go try and start a fuel-injected airplane in Arizona.
no experience. I have zero experience in a fuel-injected airplane.
So fuel-injected airplanes, they're really susceptible to what's known as vapor lock. Have you ever heard that term?
No.
No, vapor lock is what happens when the fuel lines, they run across the top of the engine. They're metal. They absorb heat, especially when the engine shuts down, right?
Right.
So when the engine shuts down, the engine will start to warm up because it doesn't have that big old fan running air over it anymore.
Right.
So as that as that engine continues to heat up, it's going to start heating up those fuel lines, and it's actually going to evaporate the fuel in the fuel lines, but it doesn't have anywhere to go. Can I compress a liquid?
Not easily.
Well, can your airplane compress a liquid with the equipment that it's got on board? No. Can it compress gases?
Yes.
So what do you think is going to happen when I turn that fuel pump on? If there is gas in that fuel line, if there's air, right? If there's a vapor in that fuel line, what do you think is going to happen?
You're just going to be pushing air into the engine.
I'm just going to be squeezing. I'm not even going to be pushing anything into the engine. I'm going to be squeezing that vapor.
Right.
All I'm going to do is slightly shrink it. The fuel pump doesn't have enough pressure to actually change its state back to a liquid. So it becomes a huge, huge pain in the ass to start. So there's one of your good benefits of a carbureted airplane. You don't have to deal with hot starts. Yep. Hot starts are an absolute pain. I have had to let my airplane sit for like 45 minutes waiting to start it.
Wow.
Yeah, because again, I shut it down and wanted to hop right back in it.
Yeah.
It's also cheaper. Carburetors are cheaper.
Okay.
All right. If your carburetor, well, that might not be the truth anymore, given that like most airplanes nowadays are starting to turn fuel injected.
Yeah.
They are. What are some of the downsides of a carburetor?
We are more susceptible to carburetor icing, as we talked about. We can lose because fuel's not being directly pumped into the engine, unusual attitudes. We can starve the engine of fuel. Stuff like that.
Okay. So you're saying you're burning 10 gallons an hour, right?
Yep.
Have you seen the fuel burn on a fuel injected Piper?
I have not.
You can get that thing down to like 6 in cruise. Up at higher altitudes, you can get it down to about 6 to 8 gallons per hour.
Wow. Okay.
Fuel injection is drastically more efficient. I've got my airplane. It's got a 200 horsepower engine, and I burn about the same amount of gas as you.
That's crazy. Wow.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Fuel injection is drastically more efficient. Okay. Now I'm gonna share my screen. This might not work very well with TikTok, so I'm just gonna do it anyway, because I wanna ask these questions. Where is it? This one? 25 word. Yeah, it's this one. All right. Can you see my screen over here?
Yeah. Let me
Awesome.
Yep, there we go.
All right. What's this? Red with the ILS.
That would be an ILS operating area.
Okay. What is this one showing me down here?
That one's showing you that runway 5 is this way, runway 23 is that way.
All right,
you're about to approach it.
All right, what taxiway am I on?
On Alpha.
Awesome. What's this?
Would that be a roadway?
So I believe
Nope, that's a roadway.
Now what's this one?
That means either a closed taxiway, closed runway.
Awesome. Let's actually look up what K is. I've got all the answers down here. 16 is K. The marking indicates the edge of a path for vehicle traffic, also areas or areas also intended for aircraft.
Okay.
All right, so it's edge of where cars can be or aircraft can be.
Okay.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and kill that. I have no other efficient way to like show you ask those diagrams, right?
No, that's fair.
Now, let's talk about how you're going to accomplish the takeoffs of your check ride. So, if we're going to do a short field takeoff, can you just kind of walk me through the steps?
Sure. So, in the Archer, the suggested procedures, we're going to have flap set 2. We will short field. Yeah, cool. We're going to apply full brakes, full toe brakes on the runway, get that power all the way set to full power. Once we've established full power, we'll release the brakes, get right down on the rudder, and start kicking in a lot of right rudder because we get a lot of power on us. We'll go ahead and rotate at 64, which will be VX for us. Climb out at 64 once we've cleared our 50-foot obstacle. We'll pitch down as simultaneously getting out a notch of flaps to 76 VY for us. And as we maintain a 76, we'll go ahead and add that second notch of flaps out and climb out as normal.
Awesome. Now, talk me through a short field landing.
So for a short field landing, at least what I've been trained on is we're going to pick a point on the runway. I have a 5,000-foot runway that we're training on, so my instructor's been pushing the 1,000-footers. So we're going to put it down on the 1,000-footers.
Okay.
Not -0 plus 200.
Okay. So what kind of So you're saying you're putting it down on the 1,000-footers -0 plus 200. What kind of technique would you use, right? So are you just diving and kind of floating along, or
I'm making sure that I'm at my final approach speed a little earlier, picking an aiming point, maybe a little a little further away, just to give myself a little more time to float. The Archer doesn't really float all that much, not nearly as much as a Cessna, I can only imagine. But
oh yeah,
but
all right,
yeah,
all right, yeah, because in the ACS they got rid of the 50-foot obstacle on the landings. All right. So we're cruising along. You're doing your cross country from, point A to point B, and you accidentally enter IFR conditions. What's your plan?
180 degrees right out of it.
All right. Let's say you don't leave it. and say, I don't know, that cloud was quick. Cloud was quick as shit. What's
Man.
your plan?
So being in IFR conditions as a non-IFR pilot, if I'm talking to flight following, I'm going to immediately let them know where I am. That start kind of externally getting some help. I have a GPS on board. I'm going to tune into a GPS somewhere. Try and get some weather reports with the very faint weather reporting data that I have on board my airplane to see where this cloud is, where it's heading. I don't want to climb necessarily because it could be a 12,000-foot cloud for all I know, and I'm not going to climb through that. But I also don't want to descend because I don't really know what's below me. I could have flown into something that I didn't want to be flying into. So after that 180-degree turn, I'm going to kind of pick that heading and stay on that heading because I've already flown into that into a safe heading, right?
All right. So let's make this a whole lot simpler. You're going to turn around. You're going to make that 180. It's going to take, at most, it's going to take you 3 to 5 minutes to get out of that cloud. If you don't end up out of that cloud, call ATC.
Yeah.
Just call them. Just be like, hey, I'm a VFR pilot stuck in IFR conditions. I need vectors to the closest VFR airport. That's it. They're going to give you headings.
Cool.
That's it. That's the extent of what you're going to do. You're not worried about up, down, left, right. You're going to call ATC and you're going to say, hey, ATC, getting weather. Sam's in the TikTok's got a good comment. Like, getting weather ain't going to help shit at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
All right, make it real simple. Make it real simple. Turn around. If you don't end up out of it, call ATC. ATC, I'm an IFR or I'm a private pilot, not IFR rated. Make sure you include that. All right, because if you just say, "Hey, I'm a private pilot in IFR weather," they're gonna go, "All right, you want a clearance?"
Which I can't.
Right.
Exactly.
And once ATC does have you, they're going to make sure that they only vector you to an airport in which they have radar coverage to the ground.
Okay.
All right. They are not going to hand you off and be like, yo, you got the ILS, right? And you're going to go, the what?
The what? Huh? Yeah, right.
All right. So you're cruising along. We didn't get into the clouds, but I don't know. You got distracted. You were focused on something else. And then you look back out the window and you're like, shit, where am I? Fuck. What are you going to do?
Sure. So in that situation, I am going to climb, but I'm also going to start circling because I don't really want to keep going out of where I don't know. And I don't know where I just came from. So we're going to kind of circle. And at that point, maybe I'm calling, the nearest ATC facility as to where I last was. And if I'm still picking them up, cool. But the biggest one is I'm going to call flight service, right? 1222 and hey, I'm lost. I don't know where I am, but I'm also going to start. I know the area pretty well here where I'm training very vastly. I mean, I've flown from Mass to Maine, whatever.
Yeah.
So you start looking for landmarks of things that I might know and kind of finding my way back down. But the greatest part about training out here is I got a nice big coastline that'll bring me right back home to where I want to go. So
that is awesome. But here's the thing. Your private pilot certificate doesn't say that you're a private pilot certificate for Northeast, the United States, right? So let's say you're down in Arizona with some buddies, right? What are some of the other things that could really help you identify your location? You don't recognize landmarks. And I mean, come on, you're in the middle of a fucking desert. There ain't no landmarks. All right. What's something else that you could use if you were in an airplane that didn't have a GPS? It's got VORs, right? Most airplanes have VORs, right? What could you do?
Yeah.
What could you do? You've just got VORs.
I could start tuning into the VOR frequencies as to where I'm around, listening to them, making sure I got the right frequency and that I'm tuned to that VOR, and then start tracking it. Start tracking to it. You'd want to go to it, and then once you cross it, you can kind of figure out where you are and plan a route back to the airport.
So VORs are pretty common. I know they're shutting down some here and there, but they're pretty common. There's usually more than one near each other, right?
Yep.
Do I really need to go to the VOR to figure out where I'm at? Is there any other thing I could do? I mean, I've got two VOR needles. Let's figure out where the radials cross.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's figure out where the radials cross. Where the radials cross is where the damn airplane is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had to do that. It's I got pretty concerned. whole shit show, right? Awesome. Went over those. Direct enter. Yeah.
See, that was going to be my first answer.
Yeah, for flight, GPS, phone, GPS, possible other options. So here's the thing. I don't ask questions like that because like everyone knows direct enter ever. Everyone knows, oh, I'm going to pull out my phone and my iPad and whatnot. But when I was trying to get home in my airplane when I bought it in Kansas, right? My iPad, my smartwatch, my phone, my GoPro, every piece of electronics I had in that airplane shut down due to overheating. Right? And I got lost. I had no idea where I was.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to use cross radios to figure out where I was and divert to Wichita. Because I wasn't making it home. Like, there's no way I was making it home after every bit of navigation equipment that I had shut down. And all I had in this airplane was dual radios and a GPS that hadn't been updated since 1987.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah. Remember, your private pilot certificate does not just clear you to be a private pilot in like whatever fancy spanky new airplane you've got. Each one of those G5s is five or six, even $7,000, not including installation.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know about you, but I ain't got that kind of fucking money.
No, yeah. Oh, I don't either.
All right. So just keep that in mind. And we didn't actually go over stalls. Thanks for that heads up. What is a stall?
So stall is where we've reached the critical angle of attack.
All right. What's critical angle of attack? Or I guess better, what's angle of attack?
It's the angle between the chord line of the wing and the relative wind.
Well, what's a chord line? That's a fancy word.
The chord line is a invisible line that's splitting through the wing, or the airfoil, upper camber, lower camber, kind of splitting it right through in the middle.
Okay. What would you say is it's going to and from? Right? What would be the mark?
From the leading edge to the trailing edge?
Yeah, from the leading edge to the trailing edge. That's why when we add flaps, right, we're changing the shape of the wing.
Right.
We're giving ourselves more upper camber. What does more upper camber give us? This is kind of a commercial level question, but what does more upper camber give us?
It allows us to make steeper approaches without gaining airspeed.
That's awesome. That's exactly what flaps are for. More upper camber lets us generate more lift at lower speeds.
Oh, okay. Okay.
All right. So yeah, Steve got it. More lift at less speed. Awesome. They're on my streams all the time, always hearing me say shit. So don't.
No, I can't even see it.
Awesome. So you said it's exceeding the critical angle of attack. What happens to the wing? What happens to the air? What happens to everything what's going on this wing once I actually enter that stall, or once I start getting close to a stall?
Sure. So once we get, say we're at a certain weight, right? We're sitting at like maybe 4 degrees, right? Already. So only part of that wing is making lift. And as we increase that angle of attack, we have less and less wind being able to go over the top of that wing and make lift. So as we keep increasing, that upper camber it physically isn't making lift. There's not enough airflow going over it to generate lift. And
so would you say a separation of the smooth airflow from the upper surface of the wing?
I feel like, I've probably read that in some textbook somewhere, but yeah.
Yes, that's it's a separation of the smooth airflow from the upper surface of the wing. Does your airplane have any? I know there's an STC for it for some Piper aircraft. Do you have any lift aiding devices?
Not on the Archer, no.
No. So you've never seen any vortex generators or anything like that? They're kind of a cool thing. All right, so we won't really dig into that. Now, airplane's upside down. We done fucked up, got the airplane upside down. And I pull back on the nose real hard to try and get the airplane pointed back up. Can I stall?
Part of me wants to say yes, but the other part's like, well, wait, hold up.
Well, here's the thing. Like, it's relative wind to the chord line, right?
Yep.
Does that have anything to do with the attitude of the airplane?
No.
So can you stall upside down?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, so I'm at, let's say I got my airplane at 2,300 pounds, right? I got my airplane at 2,300 pounds. The book says my stall speed at 2,300 pounds should be 56 knots. I don't know if that's accurate, but we'll use that as the example. Okay.
Sure.
If I am above 56 knots, can I stall?
Yes.
All right. When?
That would be in a like steep turn configuration, get into an accelerated stall.
Okay, so an accelerated stall. What causes an accelerated stall?
When we're at
So if I crank
right,
that bank over to 60 degrees of bank, what's
right,
my load factor if I maintain level flight?
2 degrees.
2 Gs. Not 2 degrees. 2 Gs,
Two
right?
Gs. Yeah.
Right? So if my airplane is close to its max gross weight, do I have a whole lot of lift extra? So can I maintain level flight at 60 degrees at 60
No.
knots? No, because I don't have the lift. What is what's VA?
That'd be our maneuvering speed.
Okay, what does that offer me? If I'm at my maneuvering speed, at or below my maneuvering speed?
We can make a deflection upon one axis, one time, not oscillating.
Okay. Yeah, that is make sure you really touch on that not oscillating part. There was an Airbus that actually lost its tail because there was a FO kicking on the rudders.
Yeah, that was the New York American Airlines crash, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't pick on specific airlines. I focus on the events. Who did it? What carrier?
Fair deal. No, fair deal. Yeah.
But so that's awesome. It was an apparently Necromancer. He looked it up. It was an American Airlines A300.
Yes.
No pilot input. Heard that on my 320 check ride. Wait, what? Either way. But so maneuvering speed makes sure that I can give full deflection on a single control surface, right?
Yep.
So if I crank, well, never mind. You already did it. You already. A lot of students will like to bring in like, oh, I'll stall before the aircraft damages. Is it always gonna stall?
No, it won't.
It won't always stall, right? I'd say you're probably ready for your check ride based on everything that I've really dug into. I mean, we could dig into a little bit more systems. If let's talk about your engine. Can you describe your engine to me?
Sure. So I have a excuse me, a Lycoming 360 4-cylinder, horizontally mounted, air cooled, naturally aspirated, directly driven piston engine.
Okay. Now, horizontally mounted, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the appropriate way to. Horizontally opposed would be the appropriate way to put that. So horizontally opposed means that your pistons, they're moving opposite of each other. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if I'm cruising along and I have a complete and total electrical failure, is my engine gonna die?
No.
Why?
Because the engine operates off of a dual magneto system for electrical power.
For ignition power.
Ignition power. So,
okay. Now, why? Like, what are those magnetos doing?
It's essentially just a magnet spun with coil wire sending. It's sending a charge to the spark plugs that are in each cylinder.
Okay, how many spark plugs are in each cylinder?
2.
Awesome. So if I lose one magneto, what's going to happen?
We're going to lose one spark plug in every cylinder.
Okay, so they share. Awesome. So I get to my airport, or I'm on my cross country. I plan on spending the night there. I done fuck up, and I didn't turn my master off. Is there any way I could get this engine started? My battery's dead.
Battery's dead. We could start with external power.
Awesome. We're at a podunk nowhere. Is there anything else that could be done?
I guess you could charge the battery. It's some way.
Have you heard of hand propping?
It's like it's not allowed at our school. We're not even
Awesome,
allowed to like
awesome.
look at the prop the wrong way. So
Awesome. I wanted to make sure that you were, you know, I wanted to make sure that your school actually had safety policy and procedures against doing shit like hand propping without appropriate training.
oh my god, no.
And that you
Yeah.
were willing to like bring it up. All right. Um, so you go to start the engine, right? And you fucked up and left the fuel pump on too long. What's that going to cause?
Flooded start.
All right. What do you do for a flooded start?
So, and this is kind of going back to where my school might differ. But for a flooded start, we're going to have full throttle open. No shots of primer, obviously, and we're gonna crank until it starts, then pull that power back immediately, so that we're not at 2,500 RPM sitting on the ramp.
Awesome, awesome. Let's say you had your alternator failed in cruise. What are you gonna do?
So I would consider this to be an emergency situation because we're now only operating on battery power, which general rule of thumb means we have plus or minus 30 minutes of electrical power to the airplane. So, I mean, again, we're not gonna lose like the engine. I mean, the engine's gonna continue to run fine, but we're gonna lose the radios, the lights, the transponder, stuff like that. Around where I'm at, the smartest option would be to like go to a non-towered field, somewhere where you really don't have to necessarily talk to somebody. But I train around the Boston Class Bravo. We only have Class Delta options really around us, so it would be enter the traffic, enter slightly above, kind of see what runway's in use, join the traffic pattern, and look for the light gun signals from the tower.
Awesome, awesome. Now, is there anything you could do to kind of conserve your battery power?
Yeah, I mean, we could turn off anything that's really not needed. So
Yeah. So let's say, certainly things that don't really have switches, right?
yeah,
All right. So I have other things that can kind of turn this off, right? Let's look at my alternator for an example. Some airplanes have an alternator field circuit switch, some don't. So
yeah,
if your alternator's dead, what could you do?
we could turn it off.
Yeah, because alternators require power to be applied to them for them to function. Well, if the alternator's dead, I might as well kill that. That's going to give me alternators can take anywhere from 1 to 10 amps, and if I've got 200 amp hour battery, that's going to give me a decent bit of time. Yeah. What else could I do? Right? ADSB usually doesn't have a button that'll turn it off, but it usually has a fucking circuit breaker.
Yep. Start pulling some circuit breakers.
What do those numbers on the front of the circuit breaker mean?
I believe that's how many amp hours that they use.
Yeah, that's how many amps that's the max amperage that the system can pull, right?
Yeah.
From that circuit breaker. It's showing you what amperage it'll pop at.
Yep.
All right. So if I pull it, it's probably going to save me about half of it, right? So I can start pulling circuit breakers. Obviously, it's an emergency, right?
Yeah.
Good shit though. Good shit. Looking for the light gun signals. I don't know my light gun signals. I'm not going to ask you to know them. We all have a knee board that has them on it, though.
Yep.
All right. Do you have any questions?
I mean, so going through kind of what we went through, do you mind if I just kind of write some things down?
Yeah.
That I can like brush up on. My check ride isn't until March 11th, but I'm just trying to do everything I can do right now so that it's nice, quick, easy, boom, done, and I, have that outcome I want.
Well, that's what everybody wants, right? I would just say get a little bit more comfortable with your V speeds and make sure that you know the numbers that are associated with the symbology, right? Because you're not getting an Archer 2 certificate. You are getting a private pilot certificate, which means technically you wanna go fly a freaking. I'm trying to think of like an old World War I fighter that's under 200 horsepower. But you get what I'm saying, right?
Right. Yeah.
You can go fly some absolutely ridiculous shit with that certificate.
Yeah.
All right. So make sure you know the V speeds and know the and know the what it's associated with on the actual airspeed indicator, right? What else? Make sure you're a little bit more comfortable when it comes to the actual regs. It seemed to be a little bit of a struggle, you knowing exactly where to find it. All right. So I know you've probably got a study guide and a little bit of a gouge that helped you remember all of this stuff, some mnemonics that you wrote down. Make sure you know where the source material is.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Because, sure, if you know it down pat, that's great. Shit changes.
Yeah.
Rules change. But generally, the number that's associated with the reg doesn't. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Do you have any personal minimums?
I do. Yep. I have
All right.
I was actually just working on them not that long ago.
So make sure you have them written down. Every time I had a student, obviously every student's got an iPad, they've got a cell phone or whatnot. I made them write their personal minimums down on a whiteboard and take a picture of it. And now that is their damn, it's their phone background screen. Now, I don't care if you got a girlfriend, boyfriend, what have you. Your phone background screen is now your personal minimums.
Sure.
Okay. And guess what? No students ever broke their personal minimums except for like one, but he did. Never mind. He exceeded the weight and balance of the aircraft. So I had to like call the FSDO and he had to go retake his check ride.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Adverse yaw and differential aileron. What causes adverse yaw?
So adverse yaw, right? When we're in a turn, obviously we have all the left turning tendencies always working against us. So that can cause some adverse yaw. But when we're turning to the right, that left aileron is down, which causes a lot of drag and will push back on the rudder. But also the wings are mounted more forward than the tail is, so the tail's just going to kind of. So there's kind of a lot of things working against you when it comes to the adverse yaw.
All right. Now you said left turning tendencies are always working against us.
They're not always.
So which one swaps? That's really what I'm getting at. Which left turning tendency swaps based on whether climbing or descending?
Like, what do you mean with that? Like,
so
are they more prominent?
Let's go through the left turning tendencies, right?
Yep.
So what are the left turning tendencies?
P factor.
What is P factor?
When, so one's coming down, the other one's coming up and creating just slightly more lift on this side, so we're yawing.
Okay. And that's generally when? Why is it coming down faster? Or it's not necessarily even coming down faster. It's coming down with a greater angle of attack, so it's generating more lift.
Right.
When? Where's my... 1 second. Look what I've got. I've got your airplane. I think it is.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, PA-28 Cherokee. So P factor is when the nose is pointed up, right?
Yep.
So I've got one blade that's taking a bigger bite out of the air than the other blade. So if I point the nose down, which blade's taking a bigger bite of air?
The other one.
So is it always a left turning tendency?
No, that one can, yeah.
All right. Next one you said was gyroscopic precession. Gyroscopic precession means that when I apply a force to a spinning object with mass, it's going to act 90 degrees in the direction of rotation, right?
I didn't say that, but yes, that was going to be.
Oh,
next. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So again, same idea. I've got my spinning object with mass up front. I pitch up. That's applying a torque, right? To a spinning object with mass, causing it to go 90 degrees in the direction of rotation.
Degrees. Right.
So if I go down, what's it doing?
It's going to work. It's going to work the opposite way. Yeah.
Awesome. So not all of them are working to the left always.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is why, have you ever noticed that like when you descend, you kind of have to like let off of the left rudder a little bit, maybe even touch a little bit of right rudder?
Yeah.
Some airplanes behave a little differently just because they're bent. You know, you students like to smash these things in the ground. So they get a little bent, and there's this little trim tab on the back of a lot of general aviation airplanes that needs to be adjusted. And, you know, again, when they're sitting out on the flight line, a lot of people bump them, right?
Yeah.
What are the other two ones? We've got two other left-turning tendencies.
Torque factor.
Okay.
And then spiraling slipstream.
All right. So can you describe torque to me?
The engine's got a lot of power and the propeller is
Spinning one
clock
way. It's spinning
spinning
one
one
way
way.
and it's forcing you the other way.
Right.
Newton's third law.
Right.
For every action, there's an equal yet opposite reaction. So
Yeah.
prop spinning right, me spinning left. Left turning
Yep.
tendency. Make it down. Make it as a simple of response as possible. Okay? Remember, never miss an opportunity to shut up. And if you get the opportunity to answer the question super simply, if they want more, they'll ask for more. Right?
Okay.
If you start giving like half-assed answers and you feel nervous about it, they're going to be like, oh, well, you don't really understand. But if you give a confident, direct, concise answer, it's like, okay, you understand the material. You understand the material well enough to explain it in a very like Barney style way, right? In a very simple way. One of the greatest tools that I ever used for like preparing for my next check ride was teaching it to somebody else.
Yeah.
If I was so comfortable with the material that I was learning that somebody else understood it, then you know it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, Steve, great addition. Make it like you're talking to a kid. All right?
Yeah. Okay.
Pretend that you're, Steve from Blue's Clues. Wait, who do y'all have for Blue's Clues nowadays? Is it John, Joe? Either way. Pretend that it's, some Saturday morning cartoon talking to a toddler, right?
Yeah.
And and then the last one was spiraling slipstream. That one's pretty straightforward.
Right.
Propeller
Yeah.
makes a tornado around the airplane and it smacks the tail.
Yeah.
Right?
On the left. Yeah.
On the left side of the tail. You got any other questions?
Overall, how do you think general stuff was?
I mean, I'd say regs. Dig a little bit more into the regs. Make sure you actually understand those mnemonics. Make sure you actually understand the source material and where it's coming from, right? Because A tomato flames and flaps and marrow or GVFR and NW craft and all that jazz. It's great that you know those mnemonics. What reg is associated with those?
Yeah.
That's really a big part that students struggle with is they do great learning the material. But then when you ask them to find it later, they have no idea where it is. And I even did this. I went into my private pilot check ride and I was like, yo, I know my A tomato flames, my flaps, my NW craft, and all this jazz. And I passed the check ride, which was great. But then when I got to my commercial training and I'm sitting here like, well, shit, I know it, but like, why do I know it? Where do I know it from? And that's really important because again, these things change. How are you going to stay up to date? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So just really make sure you understand the regs and where it's coming from. Have you ever read through your POH front to back?
Yes.
All right, do it again.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Sure.
The sectional seemed like you were it seems like you probably use your iPad a lot. I know you say you have that sectional right up there, probably like behind your camera, behind your computer or what have you. You had to look at it to be like, oh shit, yeah, there is a spot right there. So just make sure you are fully aware of where that information is because it doesn't just have restricted areas on there. There's a lot of details on that section, on that little strip, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you understand where to find all of this information. Okay. But yeah, other than really just like the reading of the boring books, pretty solid, right? It was pretty solid. Just read the boring books. And I know it sucks.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that's fair.
And that'd be a real dumb thing to fail a check ride on is going, well, shit, I don't know. Like if I was to ask you, your attitude indicators failed. Are you good to go fly?
No.
Why?
91,205.
What does 91,205 say about an attitude indicator?
That I need it.
Does it?
Yes.
Where? It's in grab card, which is IFR. But let's think about a cub, right? Let's think about that cloth cub that, that absolute lunatic goes and flies around. Does that thing have an attitude indicator?
I'm assuming no.
No, it doesn't. A lot of students, they're so comfortable with an attitude indicator because they've flown airplanes with them. and they've never flown an airplane without one.
It's not yet. Going through is in my. It's not actually.
Yeah, it's not.
Not at all.
But just think of it. If a DPE asked you that question right now, you'd be like, "No, I'd need that damn thing. That thing's super important." No, it's super helpful.
But it's not. It's not there.
Yeah, look out the window. What do you got out there? Way out there in the distance.
You got your attitude indicator right there. Right.
Yeah, the attitude. All right. 90s 50 Cub that shouldn't fly. Yeah, I know. But yeah, you don't need an attitude indicator. It's IFR. It's a good idea to have one. But you technically, if I remember correctly, you technically don't even need it for night, which is fucking terrifying to think about.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah. Same thing. Heading indicator. Is that a required instrument?
No, that was not either.
All right. So just make sure you actually read through the regs, because, you think A tomato flames right off the bat. It's like, oh, there's a bunch of A's in there. One of those must be an attitude indicator. But then when you actually cycle through it, you're like, oh, wait, it's not in it. But if you read through the regs, it's written pretty plainly exactly what instruments you need, right?
Right.
Now, you referenced 91213, 91205. Is there anything in the POH that might specify some instruments that I need?
Yeah, so we don't have a minimum equipment list. We also don't have a kinds of operating list. We don't have a code for the Archer. But there are, I don't remember the exact name of it, but there is a section in here that it has all the, like, I think one of them's like the stall warning or whatever, something like that. It's not in A tomato flames, but it's required by the manufacturer to be airworthy.
Exactly. So, you referenced 91205, which I believe 91205 is the one that talks about A tomato flames. Or it might be 91213. But either way, like, one of them also brings up the POH, the kinds of operations. Is there anything else that might have a piece of equipment that's required that might not be in 91205 or 912? Well, it's going to be in 91213, but it's not part of like A tomato flames, flaps, and it's not part of the POH.
I'm drawing a blank on this one. Gonna be honest.
It's gonna be airworthiness directives.
Okay.
Airworthiness directives. If we think, I know you're flying Archers, but Cessna has a really weird airworthiness directive, where the seat rails, the holes where the seat locks into, were getting wallowed out. So when they'd rotate for takeoff, those little pegs would pop out and the seat would slide back. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. Yeah. So there's an airworthiness directive that says, you know how you've got like the seatbelt auto tensioners?
Yeah.
All right. They told them to install one of those to the seat and to the floor of the airplane, so that if those holes came loose, the auto tensioner would grab the seat before it slid all the way back.
Huh. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Am I going to go fly if that auto tensioner isn't up? No, because it's part of an airworthiness directive.
Right. Okay.
All right. Yes, that's a great way to think of it, Sam. I don't know if anybody's told you this. Part 61 is how you get your certificate. Part 61 has all the rules and whatnot, and what kind of stuff that you need to accomplish before you can go take your check ride. And Part 91 is how you lose it. Like, those are the rules that you need to abide by and comply with, right? But yeah, I mean, I'd say other than like the Part 91 stuff, it seems like you got your Part 61 stuff down pretty good. But your Part 91 stuff, it's a little weak, but you're pretty good on most other portions.
Okay.
All right. But you got my email. If you got any other questions, let me know.
Will do. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for this. I appreciate this.
Yeah, of course. And if anybody else needs a mock check ride, there's a couple different options. Links are in the bio.